an amphibious base, and that was our first inkling of the type of ship we were going to be on. We knew we were going to be on one of the landing ships. And to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't know whether to be an LST or an LSM or what they call the LCI, Landing Craft Infantry. But anyway, for better, for worse, and it was a dump. It was a temporary, Little Creek was temporary from the first word go. I mean, the barracks were sort of old and drafty and, had been thrown together. And I know my own recollection is, and it's probably Bryce's, we had been, all that summer, he had been in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I'd been in the summer up in Sampson Naval Base. And then we were in Florida for most of the winter, and we were really used to the warm weather. We got up to Little Creek, Virginia, and we nearly perished with the cold. Oh boy, did we nearly perish with the cold. We were going around, we'd go around with 2 pairs of pants on, our long johns under that, our Navy coat, and under that our Navy sweater and our hats, and we'd be shivering. Of course, there wasn't really anything to do when we first went there. They just put us in barracks, and we were free to walk around the place, but we didn't have any duties. All we knew is that somehow or other we were going to get on an amphibious ship of some sort. Well, I guess we were there for about a week, and what happened was they posted us to Washington, D.C. Well, this was manna from heaven to get out of Little Creek and go into a big city, and I had never been to Washington, and neither had Bryce. So we were going to Washington, D.C. to what they call the Advanced Fire Control School. And it really was advanced when we got there. We went, let's see, I'm just checking my notes here. We went up there in January, late January, and we were there until about late May of 1945. And that was quite a momentous period. But first, let me tell you about the school. It was a school where you not only learned to operate the equipment much better than we knew from our primary training, but you also learned how to repair it. We had to have electric hydraulic drives on all these gun platforms, and that's where they showed us how to repair them, at least make, repairs that we could at sea. And there were a lot of very smart guys, both teaching and guys that were there who, were taking the course with us. In fact, some of them had been overseas, mainly in Europe in the Navy, and they were being reassigned. At that time, they would pull off a lot of the, well, if you want to call them the older salts, who had some experience. They'd bring them back to form the nucleus of new crews, so that a new ship wouldn't be going out with, say, a total bunch of raw recruits the way Bryce and I were at the time. Well, anyhow, it was an excellent school, and quite a few things happened while we were there. In May of 1945 is when Germany surrendered. But also, to precede that, what I didn't say, which is very memorable, is that Franklin Roosevelt died in Warm Springs, Georgia. He died on April 12, 1945. They brought his body up on a special funeral train to Union Station in Washington on April the 14th, 1945. I'm very sure of those dates because April 14th was my birthday. And anyway, Roosevelt Roosevelt's death really came as a tremendous shock to the nation because there was such secrecy and well-kept secrecy that people didn't realize that Roosevelt was that sick. But he was, and he died, so because we were at the Naval Fire Control School there, we were grabbed off, both Bryce, myself, and literally thousands of other sailors and Marines and Army guys from around the Washington area. We lined the streets all the way down from Union Station to the White House, where Roosevelt's body lay in state that day. Now, it was a cold April day, but sunny. And the streets were just mobbed, where we were lining up behind us, the crowds, to watch the caisson go by, because what they did is they had the caisson go by with the horses drawing it from Union Station down to the White House. And I tell you, well, the best way for all younger people to remember it is you remember, many of you, and seen it on video, the tragedy of John Kennedy. And they did the same thing there. He was carried on a caisson down to Lyon State. And I tell you, people were crying their heads off behind us. We had a few tears in our own eyes. We were caught up in the emotion of the thing because, again, as I say, Roosevelt's death was, at least from the public viewpoint, was totally unexpected. That's all I can say about it. So anyway, but it was a memorable moment. Going behind the big caisson in an open touring car, of course, we didn't worry about assassination so much, was then the new president, Harry Truman, with Eleanor Roosevelt. They were in the first car. And then in the second car, the open car, as I remember, were members of the Roosevelt family. He had a number of sons, I believe 4, and one of them was married to Faye Emerson. Now, Faye Emerson was a pretty noted actress at the time, the blonde bombshells, if you will, and it was very interesting. There, Faye Emerson went by with the Roosevelt. And also, I remember General Marshall, of course, who was stationed in Washington. He was in one of the lead cars. There was General Marshall and General Hap Arnold. These are famous people. And as best I can recall, Admiral Nimitz was there, and Fleet Admiral King. But Admiral Nimitz, I especially mention that because he was the Pacific commander, but he must have just accidentally been in Washington at the time. And so, in so doing, he really, Nimitz lent something to the occasion. But anyway, it was pretty heady stuff for Bryce and myself. Here we were, only about 18 years old at the time, and so it's really a time in our life that we'll remember. But anyway, after Germany surrendered, we finished up school in May of 1945 because the Japanese War was still on. And again, we really felt that we were going to have to invade the Japanese home island. I mean, nobody thought that the Japanese, for a lot of people who may treat them with disdain, you've got to realize that they didn't control their own destiny. The people, it was their leaders. And so there were many of them that must have been very, very brave, just as there were Americans. And of course, just as a little sidebar to all this, they drive a Japanese car, and here we are, they got everything they needed without a war, and it does show the futility of war.